Got a problem with that? Then you can just leave. Guess the old lady can sleep in the car. I never imagined that coming on a family trip would mean being told to sleep in the car. How did it come to this? It all started with the luxury and stay voucher I won in a raffle. I was originally going to go with my mother, but then Bob suddenly suggested changing plans. Bob insisted on bringing his kids along. His rebellious and rude stepchild and the man who continually looks down on me. Thanks to them, all the plans are in chaos. A parent and child who won't budge from the arcade. And then the foul language. They're sorely mistaken if they think I'll keep smiling and tolerate it forever. I've had enough. Will they realize the gravity of their actions if they knew how fed up I am? Living with people who always look down on you is a real pain. I think it's about time I spoke the truth. I'm Jennifer Brown, 27 years old this year. Just an ordinary person you'd find anywhere. Nothing remarkable, no special skills, just living a normal life. I went to average schools, did my job hunting like everyone else. I worked at a local supermarket but had to quit due to health issues. Quitting my job due to health issues was my first major setback. Ever since then, I've been aimlessly living each day without any real purpose or goal. I fell into a negative mindset, thinking that nothing I do ever works out. But I need to work to live. I took a temp job because it didn't seem too physically demanding. I started working at a temp agency, hoping to find a job that suited me. No passion, no goals. Just working weekdays and resting on weekends. Am I just going to age without doing anything meaningful? Well, that's probably just my life. I avoid standing out or doing anything different due to past experiences of being criticized. From my experience in my previous job, I learned that making even the slightest different move or statement would lead to criticism from all sides. While some people might not find it difficult to be criticized and are strong in the face of adversity, that's not for me. Just being one of the many is fine by me. Despite constantly having these thoughts, there came a turning point in my life. It was a drama starring my favorite actor. I was only watching it because of him, but the protagonist's struggle moved me. Suddenly, I wanted to find something I could be passionate about. Simple reason, but at that point, any reason was good enough. I needed a kickstart. But I hesitated at 25. I was working as an office temp at a big company and didn't want to quit. But like the protagonist in the drama, I wanted to follow my own path. So, I decided to test my feelings and initiative by taking action and quitting the temp agency. Although my departure was regretted at the temp placement, it couldn't be helped. I was driven by the momentum and decided to start working at a cafe, something I always loved. I've always enjoyed baking and brewing coffee, and the thought of having a cafe filled with things I love brought me immense happiness. Feeling like now was the time to go all in, I decided to start working towards opening my own cafe. Despite deciding to take action, I stumbled right from the first step. As a complete beginner in starting a business, I had no idea where to begin. Wish I had someone to guide me. I thought, heading to the local convenience store, and that's when I stumbled upon it. A help wanted sign at a nearby cafe, with a cute bear drinking coffee in the illustration. It was a cafe nearby, but I never entered it alone as it seemed a bit intimidating. It had been featured on TV a few times, managed by a famous barista. Fortunately, they were hiring, so I applied. I shared my love for making coffee and desserts, and my goal to own my own cafe one day, and they were impressed with my enthusiasm and hired me. I later learned that they had many applicants because it was a stylish and delicious cafe, but they were grateful to have chosen me. Working at the cafe as a part-timer, I learned how to make coffee from the manager. At this rate, owning my own cafe might not just be a dream. It was during these happy times that a male customer came to the cafe. Little did I know then that he would later become my husband, Bob. As Bob took off his coat, he glanced at me and smiled. That smile sent a flutter through my heart. Is it okay to order now? Yes, of course. What would you like? I'll have whatever you recommend. Our recommendation? We pride ourselves on our coffee here. I'm practicing for my own cafe, but the coffee made by our manager is exquisite. Then Bob glanced at me and said, "Can I order one more thing?" Yes, of course. What would you like? Oh, let me grab the menu for you. But as I turned to get the menu, he gently held my hand and whispered, "Actually, I'd like a coffee made by you." A coffee made by me? Yeah, I heard you're in training, and I wanted to try it. Is that okay? Yes, absolutely. I'd be delighted. This was the start of a strange yet wonderful relationship. While most customers came for the manager's coffee, Bob specifically asked for mine, even though I was still learning. The aroma of the beans seems a bit different today. Can you tell? Yes, I tried using beans that were roasted for a shorter time. How do you like it? I think it's great. The aroma is fully brought out. Good job. His advice, sometimes gentle, sometimes strict, made me look forward to the days he visited. Through our conversations over coffee, I learned that Bob was divorced due to a personality clash with his ex-wife and had a teenage daughter, Emily. I was initially surprised. It was undeniable that I felt a sense of wonder upon learning that he was living with a daughter who was older than I had initially expected, even though I knew he had a child. Bob, your daughter Emily is quite grown up. I thought girls usually stay with their mothers. Emily didn't get along with her mother, my ex-wife, so I ended up taking her in. I guessed Bob must be a gentle and understanding father to take in his daughter during such a challenging phase. Considering his financial stability, it wasn't surprising that Bob would take in his daughter if the reason was a personality clash. That's what I came to think. Despite his past and his daughter, I found myself imagining a future with him. When we talked about the future, I remember my heart fluttering when he said he wanted to remarry if he found the right person. It seemed he also had good feelings for me, and our relationship, built over coffee, grew stronger. Gradually, as we grew closer, I found myself in a relationship with Bob. My marriage with my ex-wife wasn't happy, but I think I can find happiness with you, Jennifer. Will you marry me? I love you too, Bob. Yes, I will. And that's how I accepted Bob's marriage proposal. How about we become a couple on Valentine's Day? It would be special. That sounds wonderful. I agree. Let's do that. Then Bob flipped through his planner, looking disappointed. Shoot! I've got an unavoidable work commitment that day, and it's an overnight trip. What should I do? We just need to submit the marriage certificate, right? Then, I'll take care of submitting the documents. Would you? I'm sorry to ask. Of course. I'll keep it safe until Valentine's Day. I was truly happy at that moment. The mere thought of marrying Bob filled me with happiness. We agreed to submit the marriage certificate on February 14th, Valentine's Day, and I would keep it until then, marking the start of our life together. However, the happiness following the proposal didn't last long. Bob started to monitor my actions. He wasn't happy with even my short trips out. Hey, you've been coming home late recently, haven't you? I just went to buy some coffee milk for the cafe and got delayed. What? You left work at 4 p.m. today, right? Why did it take you 3 hours? His suspicious gaze made me uncomfortable. The usual place didn't have it. They insisted on that particular brand of coffee milk, so I had to go to a department store in the next town, and that's why I was late. What? Just for coffee milk? I get it, you're cheating, right? Cheating? Why would you think that? I couldn't believe Bob's self-assured response. You're out for hours on a simple cafe job? There must be something fishy. Cut it out. Saying this, he snatched my phone from my hand and threw it on the table. I picked up my phone, which made a dull sound as it hit the table, and hurried out of the room. I never thought he would be someone who would break someone else's belongings so easily. Right after leaving the room, I felt a wave of regret. Maybe I was wrong not to contact him, perhaps he would understand if we talked. With these thoughts, I decided to return home. But when I checked my phone, I saw something unbelievable. Dozens of missed calls and messages. Just looking at the screen was overwhelming. Since that incident, things have been tense between us. It's awkward to continue living under the same roof in this strained atmosphere. More than anything, I felt suffocated and couldn't bear it anymore. While these thoughts troubled me, I went shopping at a nearby supermarket and saw an advertisement. It was their 5th anniversary celebration, and they were offering a raffle depending on the shopping amount. A raffle, maybe it's a good time to test my luck. Amidst the uncomfortable atmosphere at home and my dreams of opening my own cafe, I felt like I needed some guidance, maybe something like a fortune. I immediately decided to try my luck with the raffle. Since I had a lot of things to buy in bulk, I got the chance to participate in the raffle 5 times. At first, I only got tissues, but on the last try, I pulled out a ball of a color I had never seen before. It turned out to be the grand prize. A voucher for a luxury hot springs resort. I was so excited, it was the first time I had won such a grand prize. I hurried home to tell Bob about it. Guess what? I won a grand prize at the supermarket's raffle, a voucher for a luxury hot springs stay. Bob glanced at me disinterestedly and said without meeting my eyes, "Oh, that? I'm too busy with work for a while. Why don't you go with your mother?" "Oh. Right. Maybe I should invite Mom then." I decided to use the voucher as a way to repay my mother's kindness. A mother-daughter trip to a luxurious hot springs resort, enjoying delicious food and relaxing baths, sounded wonderful. When I contacted her, she immediately agreed, so I made the reservations early. I was looking forward to the trip with my mom. However, 2 days before the trip, Bob came up to me as I was preparing and said, "You know, I can make it for the trip after all." "What? The trip the day after tomorrow? What, you don't want to go with me?" Despite having said he couldn't go, he suddenly changed his mind. I had already made plans and reservations in my mother's name, assuming Bob couldn't join. Changing plans at the last minute wasn't easy, especially with reservations at the resort and other places. "I've already talked to Mom, and with only 2 days' notice, we can't change the reservations. We have bookings for sightseeing spots as well." "You should be grateful that I'm offering to come along," he replied. "Grateful? But you're telling me this so suddenly." Bob, looking displeased, handed me his phone. "Just call and make the changes. It's a simple phone call, do it quickly." Struggling to understand why Bob was being so authoritative after unilaterally changing plans, I knew that if I objected, it would only make his mood worse. "Oh, and Emily will come with us. Isn't it great, planning a family trip?" "But Emily has a practice match for her club that day." "What? She can miss her club for a day or 2. Just call them and let them know." Bob was becoming unmanageable. I had no choice but to comply and started calling the inn and other facilities to inform them of the changes. It was then that Emily, Bob's daughter, came home. Emily didn't seem to have a good opinion of me, only speaking the bare minimum. When she was in a bad mood, she'd glare at me and ignore me, which was a frequent occurrence. Emily was a high school student and at a difficult age, but being ignored like that didn't feel good. Bob, either aware or unaware of the tension between Emily and me, carelessly continued. "Yeah, Emily, you're coming on the family trip too, right?" "Family trip? What's that?" "Jennifer won a voucher. It's a great chance to stay at that luxury inn featured in the guidebook." "You're coming, aren't you?" Bob asked, showing her the website. Emily glanced at the screen with disinterest and muttered, "Huh, well, if it's a luxury inn, I guess I could stay there." She dropped her bag with a thud and retreated to her room. "So, that's settled. Make the calls, will you?" Bob said, casually passing the responsibility onto me. It was frustrating how he pushed everything onto me after making the decision, but I didn't have the energy to argue and went along with it. I explained the situation to my mom, who gracefully stepped back, understanding the importance of spending time with family. Luckily, the inn had an available room and accepted the reservation change, so it turned into a trip for 3 with Bob and Emily. During the trip, I was constantly pulled along by Bob and Emily's pace. Even though I wanted to visit a specific art museum, Bob and Emily were completely absorbed in playing claw machine games at the arcade. "Wow, right there! Dad, you're incredible!" "Yeah, I used to be quite the arcade enthusiast back in the day." I found myself holding all the plush toys and prizes they snagged from the claw machine. They were having a blast, almost as if they were on a father-daughter outing, fully immersed in their games. "Hey, shouldn't we head to the inn? It's almost check-in time." This seemed to annoy them, as they were in the middle of their games. "What? Stop now? Are you kidding?" "Yeah, we're having a good time. Don't ruin it." Normally, I would let such comments slide, but hunger and fatigue got the better of me, and I retorted. "We have a check-in time and dinner reservation at the inn. There's usually traffic in the evening here, so it's better to move early." They didn't expect me to push back, and reluctantly agreed, though clearly not happy about it. "Got a problem with that? Then you can just leave." Bob snapped in anger. Emily chimed in. Yeah, right. Your face is bringing down the mood anyway. Just go back alone. Why would you say something as harsh as just go back alone? How can you say that? And stay in the same room? No way. What do you mean? You want me to go home now? Emily looked at me with a twisted smile and said, The old lady can sleep in the car. I understood Emily was a teenager and not my real daughter. But there are limits to what one should say. Her words felt like the last straw for me. I'll be going home then, I said and left to get into my car. I called the inn where we were supposed to stay tonight to inform them of the change in plans. Feeling guilty about the last-minute cancellation, I continued driving. Bob and Emily, having a good time at the arcade, would eventually realize they had no car to return to. But that was no longer my problem. I drove back to my hometown and immediately headed to the police station. I went to the police station to discuss a particular matter. Feeling I couldn't stay silent any longer, I decided to bring the issue to the police. After consulting with the police, I returned home to pack my belongings. I had already prepared most of my things, anticipating that I might not return to this house. But this was the final check. As night fell and it was around 7 p.m., I received a call from Bob. Emily's voice could be heard in the background too. What's the meaning of this? There's no car. No car? That's the worst. How are we supposed to get to the inn? I'm starving. It's too late for any complaints now. I've already confirmed with you multiple times, haven't I? Bob and Emily sounded dissatisfied. You know how it is, we just lost track of time at the arcade. Don't you get it? Can't believe you just left us here. You should take responsibility and come pick us up. If you hurry, we can still make dinner at the inn. I wondered why I had to be their transportation. Say whatever you want. I've lost any desire to go on a trip with you too. You're both not children, you should find your own way back. What? I can't believe this. What are you thinking? Well, let's say. I'm just not feeling it anymore. You often say that to me, right? I'm tired of being pushed around by your selfish behavior. I decided to take care of what I needed to. Just catch a bus or a taxi, I'm done. Just wait till I get home. They probably thought catching a bus or taxi would be easy, but they were mistaken. Today was a holiday, and in this rural area, the last buses and trains had already finished their service. In this area, there's only one small taxi company with just 2 cars, and I had already checked that. They likely wouldn't find a taxi available. Because I had arranged for those taxis to take my parents to the hot springs resort. It was a small gesture of recompense for the inconvenience I caused my family due to the sudden change in plans. My mother would leave from home and my father from his workplace to the hot springs, so the taxis would be occupied. Let Bob and Emily wait for a taxi that wouldn't come, that seemed fitting. I decided to live in a weekly rental apartment in the next town. After a while, and about a week after the incident at the luxury inn, I received a call from Bob. Hey, listen. Emily got taken to the police station. I don't know what to do. You're her mother, right? Do you know anything? I felt a sense of relief that the police were finally involved, but I was also pondering what to do next. What should I do? Don't you know what happened? And now you're contacting me, after all the ridicule you've shown me? Emily just keeps saying she doesn't know anything. It's pointless. The police said you might know something. Should I go to the police station with you? Then you'll understand. I didn't want to meet him, but I decided to go to the police station with Bob to make sure they knew what had happened. In the police station waiting room, Emily was sitting on a sofa, looking dejected. I didn't do anything wrong. I just borrowed something from home. Isn't it exaggerated to not forgive your family? Hey, what happened? Tell me. There's no need to ask Emily. Can you believe someone who steals? Bob looked confused for a moment. Stealing? What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. She put my bag, clothes, and other stuff up for sale on a flea market website. I just needed some money to hang out. I was going to return it. I never expected her to use the excuse of just borrowing it. I was thoroughly dismayed by Emily's lack of remorse at this point. Did she really think such an excuse would be acceptable? Return it? I didn't know anything about it. Do you think that's an excuse? But Emily was fumbling for words, looking at the floor. All this time, you've ignored me, looked down on me, and now you act like this because you're in trouble? I just wanted the same bag as the model in the magazine. Isn't it okay since we're family? What's mine is also yours, right? I couldn't find words for Emily, who kept making excuses without any sign of remorse. Well, I guess teenage girls have their wants. I understand. Bob was trying to smooth over the situation, which was almost comical. Despite his previous indifference to family troubles and problems, it seemed Bob had finally woken up now that it had escalated to police involvement. How can you justify stealing and selling someone else's belongings? I question your morals as a human being. My patience was wearing thin with Emily, who refused to acknowledge her wrongdoing until the very end. How do you justify stealing from others? What about the branded bag you bought with the money from selling those stolen items? I approached Emily with controlled emotions, careful not to let my pent-up feelings explode. But she lashed out in response. It's been a bad habit of hers, getting defensive and angry when put in the wrong. When she does this, it seems she becomes blind to everything around her. What, so I'm the only one to blame? It's your fault for keeping your things so openly. And going to the police is just ridiculous. So, you're saying it's wrong for me to report to the police? Emily replied with a triumphant look. Yes. And family matters can't be intervened by the police, I read that online. So, I'm not in the wrong. I felt a certain absurdity in her confidence. At that moment, Bob interjected. This is a family matter, right? You don't want to blow this out of proportion, do you? Can't we just drop it? Bob started to defend Emily. Emily is my daughter with my ex-wife, but now that we're remarried, she's your daughter too. Doesn't it hurt you to see your daughter cry? Well, that would be the case if we were remarried. Bob looked shocked. What do you mean if we were remarried? I mean just that. If we had remarried, Emily would be my daughter. So, she is your daughter, right? Seeing his confusion, I decided to enlighten him. I called off the marriage because I had doubts about marrying you. Doubts? Why? Weren't you happy to marry me? What are you saying? Is there any happiness in marrying you? I firmly told Bob. So, we're not married, and Emily is not my daughter. Bob probably never expected me to confront him like this. He looked shocked, but I didn't let that stop me and continued. I was holding the marriage certificate, but your attitude changed completely once we decided to marry. That's because I was comfortable with you. So, being comfortable means you can say or do anything? I thought being open with my family was necessary. I decided it was now or never to confront him. I can't keep up with you and Emily's whims. I've felt this way for a long time. Don't say that, forgive me, for my sake. For your sake? You and Emily have continually treated me terribly. You knew I wouldn't say anything. Bob and Emily were silent at my words. How can you steal and sell someone's belongings and act like it's nothing? Just because we're family, it's not a crime? Don't joke. My words finally made them realize the seriousness of the situation. They had nothing more to say. I might as well tell you now, your boss at work knows about what you did to me. He's a regular customer, though he visits at different times from you. What? How far will you go to snitch? That's unbelievable. Unbelievable? I've also spoken to Emily's school counselor. Wonder what they'll say. Hearing this, both of them stood there, pale-faced. I had nothing more to do at the police station, so I left. It turned out that Bob's boss, knowing the whole story, began to treat him coldly. He was supposed to be up for a promotion, but because he did such unbelievable things to his family, his credibility was lost, and the promotion was cancelled. He had bragged about securing a big contract worth several million, but word spreads fast, and the client requested a change of representative. Bob's reputation plummeted, and now at work, he's relegated to menial tasks like cleaning the shredder. He complained bitterly that whenever he tries to do any real work, he's stopped as if being told not to bother, but who would trust someone unreliable? Emily's act of stealing my belongings and listing them on a flea market website became known at her school, and her guaranteed recommendation for advanced studies was revoked. One day, while I was at work, Emily visited the cafe. As soon as she entered and saw me, she confronted me. Because of you, I might have missed my chance at advancement without needing to study. What are you going to do about ruining my life? What am I going to do? That should be my line. Remember, actions have consequences, good and bad. Enough with the lectures. Just take responsibility. Emily grabbed a glass and raised it threateningly. I grabbed her hand to stop her. Don't show up in front of me anymore. If you damage my special place, you'll be dealing with the police again. She left the cafe, looking frustrated. Since then, I've regained my peaceful days. While training at the cafe, I also worked on preparing to open my own shop. I'm enjoying every moment as my dream takes shape. Something I couldn't have imagined in my previous self. I've secured a perfect spot for my cafe in a residential area a little away from the station. My long-held dream is about to become a reality. The excitement of realizing my dream soon is thrilling. If I had continued to ignore things and married him, I would never have experienced these feelings. I'm genuinely glad I followed my honest feelings back then.